Hi, Cheli. I am so delighted to talk to you because I have heard about this organization since before I became a mom.
Oh,
But the thing I want to ask you about first is you have 5 minutes to go into Target. It's 5 minutes, only five. What sections of the store are you going to and what are you going to
okay.
get?
If I went to Target, I would go to the health and beauty first. That's where I'd go. I mean, what can I say? I'd go to health and beauty. First of all, I have two girls plus myself, so believe me, somebody needs something all the time.
I know. And I every time I go past that section in Target, I get, even if it's not my intention, I end up going through there anyway because I want to see what colors there are, what new products there are. I wear my hair naturally, so there's always, oh, well, I could try this brush or, oh, I could try this detangler. And you can
Oh,
always get those things
always,
at
always.
Target. Cheli, I'm so delighted to talk to you because you are one of the founders of Mocha Moms, which is a national organization. And I heard about this organization even before I was engaged, before I was married, before I was pregnant. I knew what Mocha Moms was, and it definitely influenced my idea of what my life would look like post motherhood. Would I work? Would I not work? Would I look for other moms who looked like me? And I just want to thank you and the founders because back then in the 90s, I knew who you were.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. There were four founders of Mocha Moms. I'm one of them. And when we started this organization, this is what we hoped. We hoped that it would carry on through the generations. And, you know, one thing I would say to you is that all mothers work. All mothers work. It doesn't matter whether or not you are paid for what you do or whether or not you are not paid for what you do. You are working if you are a mother. And so
And
it's
not only
really
that,
wonderful. Yeah,
you might not be getting paid, but you're making an investment in your children. And that's how I look
absolutely.
at my time home with our son. That I was able to, well, we were all able to make an investment in him that I think still affects him to this day. And I think it will have an effect on him in his future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. I think that back in the 90s, you have to remember the 90s didn't have cell phones the way we have cell phones now. The 90s didn't have Zoom. The 90s, barely had computers. There's no Google. I mean, so we had side hustles. Side hustles existed. They weren't called side hustles. So when moms decided they weren't going to be employed full time outside the home, and that's the terminology I use, employed full time outside the home. When you decided you didn't want to do that, it was not like you could sort of telecommute or telework. There was no such thing as that. And so a lot of us who decided that we wanted to take a step back from the full time being employed outside the home, we sold Tupperware, we sold Avon, Mary Kay. I started being employed by the Board of Education in my county because in another lifetime I had taught reading to college kids who actually couldn't read because they were socially promoted all along in the barrios of New York, which is where I'm from. And so I left being an attorney and started being employed by the Board of Education. So a lot of us, as a matter of fact, 3 of the 4 founders, we were actually employed. And the Census Bureau did not even consider us at-home moms at the time. And that, because the Census Bureau at that time, if you drew Social Security, you were considered a quote-unquote working mom, an employed mom. But, it didn't matter because at Mocha Moms, it was what you felt. There was no litmus test. It was what was in your heart. And if you felt like you were an at-home mom, that's what you were.
So you talked about in your life before motherhood, you were an attorney.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people will think, why would an attorney stay at home? So why did you make that decision to be an at-home mom? And I can identify because as a former TV news anchor with a master's degree, I think I got a bunch of side eyes and looks too when people were like, you're doing what? And you're not going back to work?
My father asked the same thing. He said, I'll never forget, he said, no sensible, educated Black woman in America would stay at home with a child. That's what he told me. And the truth is, I did not plan to stay at home with my children. Not at all. I didn't even plan to have children. I didn't even plan to get married. What are you talking? I mean, that was not even in my brain, ever. I was raised in the 70s, and it was all about power moms. I mean, not moms, but just power women. And Helen Gurley Brown, I don't know if you know who that is, but she was very prominent when I was growing up. And it was the idea of getting married or having children. It just wasn't even a thought. Wasn't even a thought. So it was actually, I was surprised that I ended up marrying a very wonderful man who was a physician, is a physician, and but a military physician. So we moved with the military, and shortly after moving to this new station, I found that I was pregnant and with no friends. Just no family, no friends. I'm an only child, so I don't have much family anyway. So I had this baby and no one to help me at all. And so I said, you know what, I'm just gonna, we're gonna just stay home for my maternity leave. We're just for a little while, just for the maternity leave, and then we'll find somewhere to put this baby. And my mom came down from New York, and she spent about 3 weeks, and we went to child care centers, and we visited at-home daycares. And remember, this is before Google. This is
right.
The wild.
So you're
wild
probably
west,
looking in the phone book and everything.
We're in the phone book. We're riding around, okay, looking at signs on people's houses. That's how you did things back in the day, okay? This is even before the GPS, and this is the wild, wild west. And so after about 2 or 3 weeks, my mother and we didn't find any place to put him. And so she said, okay, maybe stay home 6 months. Or maybe stay home just a few, like 1 month, another month, and that's how it happened. It wasn't intentional.
So it turned into something that was more long term.
Exactly. But when he was about 11 months, I kind of looked around and said, "Boy, I need some money. What in the world? I got to do something."
Yeah, those bills come every month, Cheli.
I was like, okay. So that's when I said, okay, we're just got to get it together. And I actually found someone to watch him while I worked for pay for the Board of Education. And so that's when he was 11 months old. But here's the thing. I didn't work full time outside the home. I controlled my schedule. And so I was kind of able to still be at home, but be employed and make some money because we needed some money. And but during that period of time when I call myself really at home, because sometimes I think, oh, you were kind of fake at home, honey. But no, when I was really at home, I was lonely. Like the first few months of motherhood, mm-hmm. I was like, I'm looking around and I've got nobody. All of my friends
and family. Are you missing adult conversation at that point?
It was crazy. And my child is a lovely, lovely young man now. But I'm telling you, I had him in a military hospital that did not believe in rooming in. This is way back in the day. There was no rooming in at the military hospital. You had to take that baby. That baby had to be in a nursery. My child got kicked out of the nursery because he was screaming so loud and the nurses could not calm him. So in the military hospital with no rooming in, my kid roomed in because he was such a handful. This is the child I was home with, okay? And I thought I would lose my mind. And so what happened was, by the time he was about 2 months old or 3 months old, when I finally got my footing, and I nursed exclusively, by the way, I went out to the libraries and I found flyers. I looked at the penny savers and found advertisements for La Leche League. There was a group called Lawyers at Home, and they were a division of the Women's Bar Association. And so I joined that. I joined the Officers' Wives Club. I just said, I've got to find some people. I've got to, because I was just really just withering because I was just so lonely. And so by the time, I guess he got to be around 6 months old, I was in everything you could find. Like I said, Officers' Wives Club, La Leche League, Lawyers at Home. And I was going out all the time with this little baby. And I was so fortunate because there were a lot of women who were at home. I mean, there was a group called Lawyers at Home, and we met every month. And so it was just astounding. This is the 1990s. This is the 90s. So,
but it sounds like, Cheli, let me target you a little bit. It sounds like that even with all of those groups that you were in, that you found, that there was something missing that made you and the other moms start Mocha Moms. So what was missing that Mocha Moms filled in?
I was going to get there. Oftentimes, I was the only black mom in the groups. Or maybe there were two of us, and the two of us would sort of glom together. And so in all of those little groups, I would find one or two other black moms. And even though, I mean, when my kid had a first birthday party, my little townhouse, we lived in a little townhouse back then, my little townhouse was filled with women who were at-home moms, believe it or not, but of all races, because I had met so many moms, in my travels, and it was wonderful. But I found that there weren't that many at-home moms in those circles. But then my circle started getting a little bit bigger. And by the time my kid was 2, there was a whole community of black at-home moms who I had met through churches and in different establishments. So fast forward to 1997 when my kid was 3, turning 4, and Jolene and Carla, they started a newsletter called Mocha Moms. And so they started the newsletter because they didn't have any at-home mom friends. Now, they lived in Prince George's County, but they lived in Cheverly, which was largely white. I lived in Bowie, which was mixed. So they found out about me because I was very involved in La Leche League. I was on the board of La Leche League at that time. And, nursing, black moms nursing, that was kind of a new thing. And it really shouldn't have been, but it seemed like it was a new thing. And they tried to find me, and I found them because I had heard about the Mocha Moms newsletter that they had published. And Jolene, I called Jolene on the phone. I found her in the white pages. I found her. I called every single Ivy in Cheverly until I found her.
You really went old school with the phone book, Cheli.
Well, that's what we had. And I found her, and we talked on the phone for like 2 or 3 hours. And she said, I have no black at-home mom friends. And I said, Jolene, I have tons of black at-home mom friends. Let's do this. You meet me at McDonald's on Route 214. I will bring my friends in 2 days, and you will see that there's a community. And so literally 2 or 3 days later, I had called all my friends, hey, we're going to have lunch. We're going to have lunch at McDonald's. And a whole slew of people came because, it was summertime. It was like in August or whatever. And she came and she was astounded because in my community, we were not scarce. It was wonderful. And so we started Mocha Moms. After that, I said, okay, Jolene, you got a newsletter and no friends. I got friends and no newsletter. We need to combine forces
Let's put
here.
those together.
Let's put it together. And so that's what happened. So she brought her friend Carla, who helped her with the newsletter, and I brought my friend Joby, who was another military mom, military spouse at home. And we started the organization so that other black at-home moms could find each other easily and not do what I had to do, go out, for years to try to, create this community that I had created.
Well, what do you think it is? What is the sense of community? How would you describe the community to someone who doesn't know? They might have been in, a neighborhood group or a professional group, but what is it that Mocha Moms does to support moms, families, kids that you might not find in your average mom group?
Okay. Um, I I'll answer this two ways. The first thing I want to say is that we started out as a support group for at-home mothers of color. And we say support group because at the time, for many of us, what we were doing, and that is stepping back from the careers and not making all the money we could, was absolutely not accepted, not appreciated, and frowned upon by many people in our own families. So that's what the support was about. I mean, honestly, because we needed other people who could relate. A lot of times, back in those days, and maybe even now, maybe less so now, but if you were a Black mom and you didn't have a full-time job being employed outside the home, people assumed that you were on welfare. And that was not the case. We were 99% married women whose husbands supported us and supported the family and supported the wives tending to the home primarily. Okay, so that's the early years. Now, as Mocha Moms grew and got older and generations of at-home moms started to return to full-time employment as their children got older, we decided we needed to expand the mission. So the mission now is it's not only about at-home moms, although we do have an at-home Mocha's network within our organization now. But guess what? We also have a Mocha Mac network, which is Mocha Moms with Adult Children's Network. So we span, okay? It's from birth all the way into your grandma and beyond. That's what Mocha Moms is about now in terms of support and inspiration and encouragement. And it covers all phases and stages of motherhood. So Mocha Moms is a mothering sorority. That's really what it's more like. It's not just your average, everyday play group that you might, participate in when your children are young or when your children are toddlers or when they're in preschool. This group is not about the children, it's about the mothers, and the mothers providing service to each other and to the community. Community service has always been foundational with our organization. And so sisterhood, support, and service, that's what Mocha Moms is about. And you can read all about that and see pictures and galleries on mochamoms.org, which is our website.
Well, I have to say this, Cheli, as someone living in Atlanta as an African-American mom, I have several friends who have been in Mocha Moms at different stages of motherhood. And it's been amazing to see, like you said, how it evolved from, play dates and things like that to service projects, to even moms just doing things on their own. I mean, they've had high tea events. Yeah. They've had all of these things that I've seen and experienced. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Thank you for treating me as an individual outside of my child and my spouse, yes, and really honoring Black motherhood in all of the many facets that it is. Because I think, like you pointed out with history, there's been a point for maybe our grandparents did not have the opportunities that we did. I know my parents are not college graduates. Me and my siblings all are. So for our family members to see us go to college, get these degrees, get married, and then decide to stay home or modify our careers in some way is a very hard left turn. So what do you want, I guess, moms right now who are considering this, Black and brown moms who are listening, they may be pregnant, they may be home with a 1 or 2-year-old. What kind of things would you like to encourage them to do when it comes to deciding to stay home, modify your career, or even become an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. It's so funny that you mention being an entrepreneur. We have a network called Mochapreneurs, and those are Mocha moms who have either who are business owners, who have home-based businesses, who have struck out on their own, and that is a huge network within our organization. But in terms of what I would say, it's interesting. Times have changed. Times have truly changed. But one thing hasn't changed. You know you best. And you are the expert of your child. You are the expert. I think I was really fortunate. I, as an only child, knew nothing about babies. Let me be really clear. I think I had held a baby twice in my life, okay, when I had my baby. But I was so fortunate because I wandered into Barnes & Noble one day and I picked up two books. One was by T. Berry Brazelton and one was by Dr. William Sears. And those men were, to me, they were to me the Benjamin Spock of my day. And they were very much people, doctors, who believed in mothers' intuition and mothers being the experts of their own children and not relying on doctors and other psychologists and other people who don't know your child and your situation as well as you do. And so I truly believe that each mother, each family can make a decision that is uniquely suited to their situation. And really what you have to do is be open-minded to possibilities that you may not have thought of. Because I can tell you, being an at-home mom or even a fake at-home mom was never a consideration in my mind. But I needed to open my mind to the possibility that it's a valid choice. It's a valid choice. And I was very fortunate because even though my dad was absolutely up in arms because my father did go to college. My mother and father both went to grad school. My father's mother, however, was an at-home mom, but she was kind of an accidental at-home mom. She was a brilliant woman, valedictorian of her class and all of that. But when her daughter, her second child, was 1, her daughter almost died due to the negligence of a babysitter. My father was 3 at the time. And so
that can change their whole trajectory.
Zoom, she stayed home. So my brilliant grandmother stayed home, and my father had an at-home mom from 3 until. So that was certainly nothing that he necessarily wanted for his daughter, believe it or not. But my husband was steadfast in his belief, and he said, I will make the money and you will spend the money. And that was the agreement. And
that's a beautiful agreement.
That's a good agreement, honey. Well, I could do that, because I'm a saver. I'm a bargain shopper. I'm a saver. I could manage the books. He said, I will make the money, put it in the bank account, and you will spend the money. And that was our agreement. And it's very important that when you make the decision to step back from your career, to make the decision to stay at home or be at home or be a part-time worker or whatever, that you and your husband have serious conversations and that you're on the same page and that he is 100% behind it. Because without that support, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So being open-minded, yes, of course, but making sure that your support system, which is your husband, is behind it too.
I want to talk about some of the ways that Mocha Moms has grown and adjusted since it was founded. Because like you mentioned, it started out for Black and brown stay-at-home moms. It is now expanded to 100 chapters across the country, which I think is amazing. There is, like you said, a focus on multi-age moms and children, entrepreneurship, What other
Yeah.
ways do you think that Mocha Moms has changed and grown since it was founded?
Well, okay. Well, first of all, we don't have 100. We have almost 100. Almost 100.
Okay.
We're close. We're
Almost 100.
close.
So 90
We're
something?
close. We're in about 25 states. We're in about
25
25 states.
states.
About 25 states. So we are so proud of that. We started out focusing on, the at-home mom experience, and we've grown from that. So, but we still have networks that address that. So we have our homeschooling network. We have our Mochapreneurs, which I mentioned. We have our military Mochas network. We have our tweens and teens network, because that's 5th grade through 12th grade. That's key. That's key, because you are getting that child through middle school and high school and launching off to college. You need support. You need help.
I'm in the throes of that now, Cheli. It is challenging.
It is a challenge. I'm I have 3 children. My oldest was around when we founded the organization, but I still have a high schooler. So same marriage, 3 kids, but basically they're like 3 only children, because I had them, decades apart. So I'm still in that tweens and teens category. And then of course the Mocha Max, the Mochas with adult children. These are Mochas who have launched children who are in college, and that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story when you have kids in college. And then we have Mochas who are grandmas who have married kids off. So it is about, the core is still about supporting the mothers no matter where they are, meeting them where they are. And as I mentioned before, we still have our at-home Mochas network, because these at-home Mochas, they still need the same kind of support that we needed 25 years ago. We will be celebrating 25 years in September, and we have a huge gala that we're planning at the Gaylord National Resort in National Harbor, Maryland, which is the county of our founding. And we cannot believe how the organization has changed. But guess what? The world has changed. You've got fax machines and computers and scanners and phones that take pictures. We've got social media. Social media didn't exist when we started. So we have sort of ridden the wave. Mocha Moms has ridden the wave of this expansion. And so moms today have such a variety of choices. There's YouTube. They can have a blog. So many things that didn't exist 25 years ago exist now. And mothers today can craft the lives that they really want to have. If you can dream it, you can do it. And that's true now more than 25 years ago.
I want to get back to the root of why there are expectations for some stay-at-home moms that may not be expectations for Black and brown stay-at-home moms. That there is this persistent history of working outside the home. And that a smaller percentage of Black moms have stayed home than white moms. Why do you think that is? What do you think that is historically that has made such a divide? That yes, I'm glad Mocha Moms is there to support African American and brown moms who've made that decision, but there's still that divide there historically and today.
Oh, absolutely. The history of Blacks in America. We came here on a ship to work as slaves. That's how we got here. So we weren't raising our own children. Our own children weren't even our own. They were property sold off at the will of someone else. So in our DNA does not support the concept, because we never had the opportunity historically. Because when we were slaves, we certainly couldn't stay at home, because we were either working in a house or working in the field. So clearly you weren't concentrating on that child. After emancipation, life was hard. We had sharecroppers. We had, we were struggling. And so every able-bodied person had to be employed no matter what. And able-bodied means when you're 5. When you're 5, you better get out there and help pick some cotton, do a newspaper route, do whatever. You needed to do something to make money, because without money, the family would crumble, couldn't survive. Now, historically, racism, discrimination, it's made it so our husbands, the fathers, were lynched, taken from the home, not given opportunities to have jobs that would pay
or earn
enough.
so much less, earn so much less once they did
that's
have
where I
a
was
job.
going. That earned jobs that paid enough money to support a family. So therefore, Black women, Black mothers absolutely had no option. And even the ones who decided, I'm going to figure out how to, stay at home but make some money, that's how we brought laundry in. That's how we did a lot of things. We had side hustles before side hustles were side hustles, okay?
Well, that's
Way
what
back.
bake sales, people were baking,
Yes.
cooking, doing all sorts of things. That's what my mother and my grandmother did those things too, to support the family on top of having a job. Like you said, there's been a history that I found like the Black women in my family usually held down a full-time job and something else. And I want to acknowledge what you said about your father's reaction to you staying home. And my mother had a similar reaction to when I did not go back to my full-time job or pursue a full-time job as a journalist. Like you, when I got married, we were in our first year of marriage when we had our son. Our son is a honeymoon baby. Oh. I had just moved to Atlanta. I had no friends. I had to find a gynecologist in a city I'd never lived before. I had to find support, just all of these things that I had to find, and it was not easily accessible to me. One of the things that I did, because of the internet, I think it was Meetup. It was a Meetup group that I found other moms online in my neighborhood and things like that. But I want to get back to the root of what I think our parents are thinking when we say we're not going back to work or we're going back to work differently.
Okay.
I think they have a fear about our stability and our well-being and what's going to happen to you or what happens if something happens to your spouse.
Absolutely. That is my father's fear. My father's fear was, my husband might leave me. That's the first thing. He might decide, hey, you know what? I'm leaving. And if he leaves, then that income leaves. That was my father's fear. My father's fear was that, we could not be as upwardly mobile as we needed to be because my income was, could have been substantial. And matter of fact, when
your income could have grown over those years too.
And matter of fact, when my husband and I married, I made most of the money. He didn't make most of the money. I made most of the money when we got married. So my father was thinking that I had lost my mind because he wanted me to get the big house, to buy the expensive car, to move, to keep up with the Joneses. And when you step back and you on purpose decide you're not going to make as much money as you could, you're not keeping up with the Joneses. And my father, with my 2 Ivy League degrees, he was like, are you kidding me? You could be whatever. You could have a legacy. Anybody could take care of a baby. You need to go back in there and write those briefs. And I said to him, Dad, anybody could write briefs, but only I can be mother to this baby. And I don't know where I got that. I don't know where I got that because my father was. My father was a strong, headstrong. He was, when he bellowed down at you, honey, you just cower. But I was like, oh no, we're not gonna cower. No, we're not gonna cower. no, and I say I do attribute some of that to Dr. William Sears and his book, The Baby Book. But I'm telling you that my father was afraid. He was afraid for me because he knew that things could work out very poorly. And it's true, divorced women fall below the poverty line very often. Very often. So I mean, he had every right to be fearful. It's not in our culture. It's not in our culture for the men to think it's okay for the women not to make all the money they can. It's not part of us. And so I get it. I completely get it. And it's not part. I mean, it's almost anti-American not to keep up with the Joneses, not to get out of the little townhome as fast as you can. We stayed in the little townhome.
And I think especially when African American women are some of the most highly educated women in this country.
Absolutely.
And you and I are a testament to that. We both have advanced degrees, and we both made that decision. For however long it's going to be, I'm going to stay home, work from home, modify my career, and prioritize my children.
Yes. And that's what it is. Mocha Moms is for women who support the mission of prioritizing their families. I mean, that really is. And you can prioritize your families no matter how that looks. So it's not, there's no litmus test. There's never been. You can work. You can be employed full-time outside the home and still prioritize your family.
No doubt.
So it's really, we never wanted to engage in the mommy wars. That was huge in the 90s. The mommy wars thing, I don't know if you know about that, but it was a major schism in America, this mommy wars.
Well, that's why I like what you said early on. All mothers work.
Yes.
All mothers work.
Yes.
A lot of it is unpaid, unseen, overnight work while your kids and your husband are sleeping. Things, lists that are being made, lunches that are being packed, all of these things that are done. I think back to my mom working full time. My mother woke up, I think, way before us, I think about 5 a.m. to do laundry, to make dinner, to get things rolling before she went to work. Yes. So that when she came home, dinner was not ready, but close to being ready. Our clothes were ready. We had done our homework. We had done all of these things. And I think about the mental load, the mental and emotional weight load that my mother had that I never, ever saw.
That's right. And that's right. And that's what we do. When I homeschool, we have a homeschooling network. I don't know if I mentioned the homeschooling network. We have a homeschooling network.
You did.
I homeschooled my son. And at the time I was homeschooling my son, just the first 3 years, I am not a homeschooler. I was like, you know what? Some things are just not for Cheli. But I did for the first few years. And at the time, my husband and I had a business. I also became a realtor. And of course, I was doing Mocha Moms. So I woke up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock every morning. That's when my day started. My day started at 2:30 or 3 o'clock, and I worked straight through to 8 a.m. And that's when I got him up, and I was a homeschool mom. And so that's why I can't sleep now. Do you realize I wake up, I can't help it now. But I woke up at 3 o'clock, between 2:30 and 3 o'clock every morning to work the business, to work for Mocha Moms, to work the real estate. And that's what I did. I did a full 5 hours every morning.
I am in awe. I've never done that, but I have. When my son was a toddler and he went to a few Mom's Morning Out programs, I would drop him off. I would go right to Starbucks. And I'm telling you, I worked hard from 9 to 1. Yes. Picked him up, got him home, put him down for a nap, got another 90 minutes of work done.
Yes.
Tried to make dinner while he was asleep, try to do those things, get him up. And all this is why my husband's at work, or he's sleeping because he worked a late shift. And I'm like, there's so much that people don't see
that's right.
that mothers handle. And then when you add in being a Black mom, you add in the income disparity that we kind of talked about, and racism and the emotional toll of it all, it is a lot.
It's a lot.
I want to point out, when I was just joining mom groups, and I was often the only or one of two Black moms in a mom group, it was interesting to see the dynamic. Because when I did get around other Black and brown moms, there were things that we talked about that maybe my other friends didn't talk about. And often it was skin care, hair care, our children having eczema, our children having allergies, wanting to find Black physicians, Black dentists, more culturally diverse activities and things like that for our kids. How often are those conversations had in Mocha Moms, and why are those conversations important?
Those conversations are had all of the time. That is key. I mean, that is why Mocha Moms, in part, exists, so we can be a resource to each other. This is why we have Mocha Moms. We instituted Occupy Schools, an Occupy Schools initiative back in 2012. Part of the Occupy Schools initiative is that every year Mocha Moms has to host, every chapter has to host an education potluck. That's what we call it, an education potluck or an education forum. What happens is that on a small scale, every Mocha Mom member comes to a meeting with a packet of information from where their child goes to school. And they talk and say, hey, my child goes to this school, we like it because of this reason, and this is what the child is learning, this is why we like it, and here's some information if you want to check out my school. Or, this is where my child attends right now, we're not really very happy with it, can someone give me another suggestion, please? We need to be resources for each other. Where do you get your child's hair braided? Do you want to put chemicals in your child's hair or not? Or skin color discussions, colorism discussions about what happens when someone at your child's school tries to touch their hair and makes comments about the child's hair. There are so many discussions that Black moms have together that just aren't going to be had at a predominantly white moms group, because you can't relate. They don't get it. And we do have a lot of moms who have joined Mocha Moms who are white moms with biracial children. And we welcome everyone. Let's be clear. We welcome everybody. As long as you support the mission and purpose of Mocha Moms, you are welcome to join. And your $50. You are welcome to join Mocha Moms. Here's the thing. But we're not going to change Mocha Moms because you're there. You're going to hear the discussions. So if you want to, have your child, around other Black and brown children, that's fine. But we want you to be engaged with us too, because it's not a play group. It's not a play group. Right. It's not just so you can drop your biracial kid so they could see some other children that look like them. No. This is a sorority. This is a sisterhood. So
this is a community. This is a whole community.
Absolutely. When someone has a baby in Mocha Moms, there's a meal train. Someone gets, who wants to give the meals. And it's not just when someone, has a baby. When my father died a few years ago, it was the Mochas that came to my house and helped with the repast. It's the whole thing. It's the family, because a lot of us aren't raising our children in our hometowns.
It's a reality that a lot of us don't live close to our parents, close to siblings, close to loved ones. Exactly. And it's a hard left turn. It really can be a hard left turn for new African American, brown moms, multiracial moms, and new communities to really find their footing in a group. So I'm so glad that Mocha Moms is there filling in that gap. But I want to
Thank
talk
you.
about your new endeavor, which is Gray Haired Mama,
Oh,
and your
yes.
book, When the
Yes.
Nest Never Empties, a handbook for living with adult children and or elderly parents. That means you're in the
Yes.
next phase now, Cheli.
I'm in the next phase. Here's the deal. It's interesting. The gray-haired mama idea came because I am a gray-haired mama. I mean, I diet, okay? So I don't look gray. But if I let these roots grow, you will see I am a gray-haired mama. I am in my 50s and I'm looking at 60s, and it's not that far in the distance. And I am at the stage in which I have an adult child who's 28 years old. I have a mother who is 91 and she has dementia. And I had to move her from New York basically forcibly because she could no longer care for herself. She could not live alone. And so this book that I wrote this is a pandemic book. This is a pandemic book. This is when we were on lockdown and I wasn't running my high schooler to the ice skating rink and the cello lessons and the orchestra rehearsals and all that. I had some of this extra time and I said, I want to contribute. I'm living a life now and I need people to see what I've done wrong so they can maybe do it right. Okay, so when my son came home from college, it took him a while to get a job, and he does have a job. My son is gainfully employed. He went and got his master's as well, and I'm very proud of him. And but he lives at home, and it's okay because guess what? We have come to a wonderful symbiotic sort of relationship with him being at home. But there were things that I should have done initially. There were questions that I should have asked. There were boundaries and rules that should have been in place ahead of time. So, and thankfully he's a lovely young man, very easy to live with, very devout, church going young man. He goes to church. He beats me out every Sunday. He beats me out the door to go into church. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. So it's really good. But there were things I could have done that would have made the transition a little smoother. And so bringing my mother to me, that happened in an emergency. Had I known what was going to happen, had I realized some things ahead of time, I could have perhaps done things better. And so this book is really a workbook. It's not this book that I wrote in the pandemic when I had some time to think about what would I tell someone. It's really a workbook. It's a workbook about, these are the questions you need to ask. These are the things you need to think about. What are some of the rules? Do you allow the girlfriends to come to the house and sleep overnight? Yes or no? Just think about it. I'm not going to tell you what's right for your household,
Right.
but you
just
need
work
to figure
through
it out.
it.
Work it through.
Well, Cheli, thank you so much for giving us that, not only just the history of Mocha Moms, the intention of Mocha Moms, how it has changed and developed over these 25 years, and how you and some of the more experienced moms in Mocha Moms are still sharing your knowledge and your expertise and supporting moms of color.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I've enjoyed talking to you so much.